Have you ever wondered why the kingdom of heaven seems so elusive, so distant, despite years of spiritual seeking? What if I told you that the very way you've been taught to think about heaven has been keeping you from experiencing its divine power in your life right now? For centuries, spiritual seekers have been searching for the kingdom of heaven as if it were a distant location, a place reserved for the afterlife, or a reward waiting for us somewhere beyond the clouds. We've been conditioned to look outward, to wait patiently for some future moment when we'll finally cross the threshold into divine reality. But what if this fundamental misunderstanding has been the very thing blocking your experience of spiritual fulfillment? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the globe. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Has this ever happened to you? You pray fervently, asking God for healing, for abundance, for peace, only to feel like your words are disappearing into an empty void. You wonder why divine presence feels so inaccessible, why there seems to be such an unbridgeable gap between you and God. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely transform your spiritual practice and your experience of the divine in everyday life. Goldsmith, one of the most profound mystical teachers of the 20th century, revealed a truth that mystical Christians have understood for ages. The kingdom of heaven is not a location at all. It's a state of consciousness, a realm of spiritual awareness that exists within you at this very moment. This isn't merely theological theory or abstract philosophy. This understanding has practical, transformative power that can completely shift your experience of healing, abundance, relationships, and spiritual connection. When you truly grasp that the kingdom of heaven is your own consciousness, you stop looking for divine reality somewhere out there and begin recognizing the perfection that has always been the very essence of your being. What you're about to discover might surprise you, especially if you've spent years in traditional religious settings where heaven is portrayed as distant and separate from your present experience. This teaching isn't new. It's actually an ancient wisdom that has been preserved by mystical traditions throughout the centuries. It's the recognition that Jesus himself pointed to when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." Imagine what might change in your life if you could access this divine consciousness not after death, not after years of spiritual striving, but right now, in this very moment. How might your approach to challenges transform? How might your prayers evolve from desperate pleading to confident recognition? Now let's explore what happens when you begin to shift your understanding from heaven as a place to heaven as a state of consciousness. A shift that doesn't just change your theology, but transforms your entire experience of life itself. If these teachings about the kingdom of heaven have illuminated something within you, hit subscribe to join our community of spiritual seekers exploring these transformative principles together. When we truly understand that the kingdom of heaven is within, a profound revelation occurs in our spiritual journey. Our entire approach to prayer undergoes a radical transformation. Think about it. How often have we approached prayer as if we're sending messages to a distant deity, begging for intervention, healing, or abundance? We've been taught to pray as if we're separated from the divine by an unbridgeable gap, as if God is somewhere out there while we're down here. This mindset creates an experience of separation that actually blocks the very connection we're seeking. But the hidden truth that mystics have known for centuries is that prayer isn't about convincing a reluctant God to help us. It's about awakening to the divine presence that is already the very essence of our being. This shifts everything. Prayer transforms from pleading to recognition, from asking to awakening. It becomes less about changing God's mind and more about changing our awareness. In this new understanding, We're not trying to reach across some cosmic divide. We're simply turning our attention to what has always been present within our own consciousness. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring something truly remarkable about this inner kingdom. Goldsmith made a profound discovery that this realm of consciousness operates according to entirely different laws than the material world we're accustomed to. This isn't just a minor shift in perspective, it's an entirely different reality operating beneath the surface of our everyday experience. In the material world, we're conditioned to see lack, limitation, disease, and separation everywhere we look. But in this inner kingdom, this state of consciousness, there is no lack. There is no disease. There is no separation from good. This isn't positive thinking or wishful imagination. It's the recognition of a spiritual reality that remains perfect and complete, regardless of material appearances. When we access this kingdom through meditation and spiritual awareness, we begin to bring its reality into our visible experience. The journey isn't about escaping the material world, but about allowing the perfection of the inner kingdom to transform our outer circumstances from within. Think about the impact this understanding could have on your daily decisions and challenges. Instead of constantly battling against material conditions, trying to manipulate external circumstances through force or willpower, you begin working from the level of consciousness itself. You recognize the divine perfection that already exists within your being, and from that recognition, healing, abundance, and harmony begin to flow naturally into your experience. This isn't instantaneous magic. It's a gradual unfolding, a revelation of what has always been true beneath the surface appearances. The veil between these two worlds, the material and the spiritual, begins to thin as your awareness deepens. If you're connecting with these ideas on a deeper level, write in the comments, "I'm awakening to the kingdom within." Now, as we explore how this understanding actually works in practical, everyday situations, let's be clear about what happens when this understanding truly dawns in your consciousness. You don't suddenly become a perfect being who never faces challenges or difficulties. Life doesn't magically become free of obstacles. This isn't about escaping the human experience. It's about transforming it from within. What you gain through this revelation is access to an inner resource that is always available, always present, and always responsive to your recognition. Goldsmith called this the practice of the presence, a continuous awareness of this inner kingdom that becomes the foundation for navigating everything life brings your way. This practice isn't about achieving some idealized spiritual state where problems never touch you. It's about developing a new relationship with challenges when they arise. It's about knowing where to turn first when faced with difficulty. This mindset shift may seem subtle, but its impact on your daily experience can be profound. Think about how this applies to real-world situations. When facing a health crisis, the natural human response is to panic, to become consumed with fear, to see only the material diagnosis and prognosis. But with the practice of the presence, you develop a different initial response. Before being swept away by fear, you turn within to recognize the spiritual truth that exists beyond physical appearances. In the kingdom of heaven within you, there is only wholeness, only divine perfection. This recognition doesn't mean you ignore medical wisdom or practical treatment. Rather, it opens a channel for healing power that transcends material limitations completely. Your actions may look similar on the surface. You might still consult doctors and follow treatment protocols, but these actions now flow from a different source, a deeper knowing. The same principle applies to financial challenges. When confronted with lack, with bills that exceed your income, with unexpected expenses that threaten your security, The practice of the presence means returning first to the consciousness of the inner kingdom where divine supply is infinite and eternally flowing. From this awareness, something remarkable begins to happen. Right action emerges naturally. Opportunities appear that you might have missed if operating solely from fear and lack. Solutions present themselves that weren't visible when viewing the situation only from material consciousness. This is what happens when consciousness itself demonstrates its own abundance, not through force or manipulation, but through spiritual recognition. Behind the scenes of every healing, every financial breakthrough, every restored relationship is this same principle at work. The outward circumstances may vary widely, but the inner journey is consistent, a return to kingdom consciousness as the foundation for all external action. The revelations that come through this practice aren't abstract philosophy, they're practical wisdom that transforms how you navigate everyday challenges. You develop a dual awareness that honors both the practical requirements of the situation and the spiritual truth that transcends appearances. If you've experienced moments where an inner knowing guided you through difficulty, write in the comments, "I've glimpsed the kingdom within." Let's explore now how this understanding gradually develops through consistent practice. The transformation I'm describing doesn't happen overnight. It develops gradually over weeks and months of consistent practice. This isn't a quick fix or an instantaneous enlightenment experience. It's a steady awakening to what has always been true beneath the surface of your awareness. The journey of discovering the kingdom within unfolds step by step, with each recognition building upon the last. Subscribe to this channel if you're ready to continue. This journey of discovering the kingdom within, we explore these profound mystical truths that bridge spiritual understanding with practical daily living. You begin with something remarkably simple, acknowledging throughout your day that the kingdom of heaven is within me right now. When you wake each morning, pause for just a moment before diving into your to-do list and affirm this truth. During challenging moments, when stress rises, when conflict emerges, when fear threatens to overtake, you take even 30 seconds to return to this inner kingdom and recognize the truth that exists beyond material appearances. What you'll notice are subtle shifts at first, perhaps a deeper peace in situations that would normally trigger anxiety. Maybe unexpected solutions appearing for persistent problems. You might experience a growing sense of divine guidance in daily decisions. These seemingly small changes are actually profound indicators that you're beginning to live from kingdom consciousness rather than purely from material awareness. The breakthrough comes in realizing that you don't need elaborate rituals or complex spiritual techniques to access this realm. The doorway to the kingdom is always open, waiting only for your recognition. This simplicity is both its power and its challenge. The mind often resists what appears too straightforward, searching instead for complicated systems or secret formulas. But the pathway to spiritual transformation has always been recognition, not creation. This is a crucial distinction in Joel's teaching. You are not attempting to manifest or create the kingdom of heaven through positive thinking or visualization exercises. You're not using spiritual techniques to construct something new. Instead, you're uncovering what has always been present, waiting for your awareness. The kingdom is already established within your consciousness. Your recognition simply removes the veils that have obscured it. As this practice deepens, recognition of the inner kingdom becomes the foundation for everything else in your life. Healing, prosperity, relationships, creative expression, and spiritual growth. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to return to this foundation, to operate from kingdom consciousness rather than material reaction. Every relationship becomes a canvas for expressing the divine qualities you're discovering within your own being. This is where the real alchemy of transformation occurs. Your outer world Gradually begins reflecting the inner kingdom you're recognizing consistently, not because you're manipulating circumstances through mental force, but because consciousness itself is expressing its nature through your experience. The blueprint of your life shifts from fear-based survival to kingdom-based expression. Behind every authentic spiritual journey is this same pathway of recognition. Different traditions may use varying language, but the essential movement is identical. From struggling against appearances to recognizing the divine reality beyond them. From seeking outside yourself to discovering what has always been within. If this understanding of gradual spiritual unfoldment resonates with your experience, write in the comments. I'm walking the path of recognition. Let's look now at how this principle manifests through specific testimonies of transformation. Let me share a testimony that reveals how this understanding works in real life. A woman came to Joel's classes, suffering from a condition that had persisted for 3 years. She had explored every medical approach available, invested significant financial resources, and still received no lasting relief. Her doctors were compassionate, but ultimately told her she would simply have to learn to live with constant pain and limitation. With nothing left to lose, she began studying Joel's teachings about the kingdom of heaven within. At first, she struggled to grasp how consciousness could possibly affect physical conditions. The concept seemed abstract, too mystical to apply to her very real, very painful experience. But she persisted in meditation daily, returning again and again to the recognition that divine perfection existed within her consciousness, regardless of what her body seemed to be telling her about disease and limitation. After 6 weeks of this practice, something shifted internally. She couldn't explain it in medical terms, but she felt a deep peace replace the anxiety she had carried for years. This inner transformation didn't immediately change her physical symptoms, but it changed her relationship to them. She was no longer defined by her condition. Within 3 months, something remarkable began happening. The physical symptoms started diminishing noticeably. Her doctors were puzzled, but pleased. Within 6 months, she was completely free from the condition that had dominated her life and stolen her joy. The healing journey wasn't instantaneous. It unfolded gradually as her consciousness shifted from material limitation to spiritual freedom. What happened with this woman wasn't a magical intervention or random miracle. She awakened to the kingdom consciousness that had always been present within her. She stopped fighting disease from the level of disease and instead recognized the spiritual truth that transcends all material conditions. A similar revelation occurred in the financial realm. A businessman faced imminent bankruptcy after his partner embezzled company funds. Creditors were demanding immediate payment, legal troubles multiplied daily, and he saw no possible path forward through the financial disaster threatening everything he'd built over decades. Someone gave him Joel's recordings about the kingdom of heaven. Initially, he dismissed them as religious philosophy, with no practical value for his desperate situation. But having exhausted every material solution, he began listening during his commute and practicing the meditation exercises Joel described. The revelation came when he started recognizing that divine supply existed within his own consciousness, independent of external circumstances. This wasn't wishful thinking, it was tapping into the different laws that govern the inner kingdom. Within 2 weeks of this practice, an unexpected contact led to a business opportunity he had never imagined possible. Within 2 months, he had restructured his company with new partners who shared his vision and integrity. Within 6 months, he had not only recovered from near bankruptcy, but was actually more prosperous than before the crisis. The mindset shift that enabled this breakthrough wasn't about positive visualization or manifesting techniques. It was the discovery that the kingdom within operates by entirely different principles than the material world of limitation and lack. If you've ever experienced an unexpected breakthrough that seemed to defy logical explanation, write in the comments, "I've witnessed kingdom principles at work." Now let's explore the specific practices that develop this consciousness. The power of kingdom consciousness extends beyond physical healing and financial restoration. It transforms our most precious relationships as well. A mother had been estranged from her daughter for 5 years following a bitter conflict that left them both wounded. The separation caused immense suffering for both women, but pride and accumulated hurt prevented any path to reconciliation. The mother had tried everything imaginable: heartfelt letters, mutual friends as intermediaries, family therapy, even surprise visits. Nothing worked. The relationship seemed permanently broken beyond any possibility of repair. In her desperation, she began working with Joel's teachings about the kingdom of heaven. What made the difference in her approach was a profound shift in focus. Instead of continuing to try to change her daughter or manipulate external circumstances, she began recognizing the divine perfection within her own consciousness. She meditated daily on the truth that love, wholeness, and harmony existed in the kingdom within her, regardless of outer appearances. This represented a complete reversal in her strategy. Rather than viewing her daughter as someone who needed to be fixed or convinced, she released her attempts to control outcomes and rested in spiritual truth instead. The inner work wasn't about visualizing a reconciliation scenario. It was about recognizing the underlying spiritual reality that transcended the painful human story. After 4 months of this practice, something unexpected happened. Her daughter called. The conversation was brief, but warm, with none of the defensiveness that had characterized their interactions for years. Over the following months, connection gradually restored. Today, 2 years later, they enjoy a relationship deeper than ever before. The mother attributes this breakthrough entirely to her shift in consciousness from trying to fix external situations to recognizing inner spiritual truth. This pattern reveals something profound about how consciousness operates. When you truly understand the kingdom of heaven as your own consciousness, you stop manipulating outer conditions and start recognizing inner reality. From this recognition, healing, prosperity, harmony, and guidance naturally emerge into your visible experience as material reflection of spiritual truth. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by sharing a specific technique that Joel taught for developing this awareness. He called it the practice of stillness, and it's far more than simply sitting quietly. This is an active inner stance of receptivity, an openness to divine presence that already exists within your consciousness, waiting only for your recognition. The technique itself is remarkably simple. Set aside 15 minutes each morning before external demands consume your attention. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and release all thoughts about problems, needs, or desires. This is crucial. Do not pray for things. Do not visualize outcomes. Simply rest in the awareness. The kingdom of heaven is present within me. Let this recognition fill your consciousness without any effort to make something happen or achieve any particular result. The revelation here is that you don't need to create divine presence through spiritual techniques. You only need to become receptive to what already exists within you. At first, your mind will rebel against this simplicity. It will insist you should be doing something, asking for something, working towards something tangible. This mental restlessness is completely natural and part of the journey. Simply observe these thoughts without engaging them and return gently to your recognition of inner kingdom presence. The mindset shift occurring beneath the surface during these meditation sessions is profound. You're gradually training your consciousness to recognize spiritual reality rather than just reacting to material appearances. This becomes the foundation for transformation in every area of life. If you've experienced moments of profound stillness where something deeper than thought was revealed, write in the comments, "I've touched the stillness." Let's explore another complementary technique that reinforces this awareness throughout your day. The second complementary technique that Joel taught is what he called divine indifference. Now, this term can easily be misunderstood. It doesn't mean becoming uncaring or emotionally detached from life situations. It certainly doesn't mean passive resignation to whatever happens. What it actually describes is a profound inner freedom. You are no longer enslaved to material conditions because you've discovered an inner kingdom that remains perfect regardless of outer appearances. You care deeply about situations and people, but you are not controlled by them because your source is consciousness, not circumstances. This mindset shift creates a radical transformation in how you experience daily challenges. When difficult situations arise, a troubling diagnosis, a financial setback, a relationship conflict, you pause and recognize, the kingdom of heaven within me is untouched by this material appearance. Divine reality exists beyond what my senses report. This recognition doesn't deny the existence of problems or suggest you should ignore practical matters. Rather, it prevents problems from controlling your inner state completely. You remain anchored in spiritual truth, even while addressing material concerns wisely. This is the balance point where spiritual awareness meets practical living. A businessman who learned this technique described his experience in revealing terms. When his largest client suddenly cancelled a major contract, a situation that would normally trigger panic and desperation, he took just 5 minutes alone to recognize the kingdom consciousness within him. From this centered awareness, he then addressed the situation calmly and creatively. Within a week, 3 new opportunities appeared that proved more profitable than the lost contract had been. The revelation wasn't that problems disappeared, but that his response to challenges flowed from a different source entirely. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring perhaps the most transformative application of kingdom consciousness, recognizing it in others. This is profoundly important for healing relationships. When someone treats you unfairly, criticizes you harshly, or seems intent on creating conflict, your natural reaction is to see them as the problem, the obstacle, perhaps even the enemy. But kingdom consciousness reveals a deeper truth. The divine presence exists within their consciousness too, even if they are currently unaware of it and acting from ego or fear instead. This recognition doesn't mean you allow mistreatment or fail to set healthy boundaries. It doesn't mean you pretend harmful behavior is acceptable. It means you respond to situations without seeing others as enemies to defeat or obstacles to overcome. This inner stance often produces surprising results in relationships. People sense at some level when you see them through kingdom consciousness rather than judgment, and something within them responds to this recognition naturally. The hidden truth is that we all hunger for someone to see past our outer behavior to the divine essence within us. A teacher used this approach with a student who had been disruptive and disrespectful for months. Instead of reacting with anger and punishment, she began silently recognizing the kingdom of heaven within this troubled student during her morning meditation. She maintained appropriate classroom discipline while holding this inner recognition consistently. The transformation that unfolded was remarkable. Within weeks, the student's behavior began changing noticeably. If you've ever experienced someone seeing the best in you when you couldn't see it in yourself, write in the comments, "Someone recognized my inner light." Let's address now the realistic challenges you'll encounter as you begin implementing these practices. Let me be honest about the challenges you'll face on this journey, because pretending the path is easy would do you a disservice. The first major obstacle is simply maintaining consistency. You'll likely begin with enthusiasm, meditating daily and recognizing kingdom, a consciousness throughout your day. Then life will inevitably get busy. Deadlines, family demands, health issues will consume your attention completely. You'll skip your practice for a few days, then a week, perhaps even longer. When this happens, guilt and discouragement often follow. You might think you failed, that you're not spiritual enough, that this path is too difficult for someone with your responsibilities. This is the pivotal moment in your journey. Instead of abandoning the practice entirely, simply return to it today without self-judgment. The revelation that transforms spiritual seekers is understanding that growth isn't about perfection, but persistence through imperfection. Joel himself experienced periods where external demands made regular meditation difficult. He didn't interpret this as spiritual failure. He simply returned to practice when possible and maintained awareness even during busy periods. The kingdom of heaven within you doesn't disappear when you forget to recognize it. It waits patiently for your attention to return, like the sun behind clouds waiting to become visible again. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by addressing perhaps the most difficult challenge, dealing with severe crises that seem to contradict kingdom consciousness entirely. When you receive a devastating diagnosis, when financial disaster strikes, or when a relationship falls apart, recognizing inner spiritual perfection can feel not just difficult, but absurd or even offensive. How can you acknowledge kingdom consciousness when material circumstances scream disaster and loss? The breakthrough comes in understanding that Joel isn't asking you to deny painful circumstances or pretend everything is fine when it clearly isn't. He's inviting you to hold two truths simultaneously. Material circumstances are real on their level, but spiritual reality is deeper and more fundamental. This dual awareness isn't easy. It requires spiritual maturity to navigate life's storms while maintaining consciousness of the kingdom within. You'll sometimes lose your grip on kingdom consciousness completely during severe challenges. This is human and natural. The practice isn't achieving permanent perfection, but developing the ability to return to spiritual awareness more quickly after being pulled into material fear. Each return strengthens your spiritual foundation until, over time, something remarkable begins to unfold. Kingdom consciousness that once required deliberate effort becomes increasingly natural. You automatically return to spiritual truth more quickly after being temporarily pulled into material thinking. Solutions appear more readily because your awareness is tuned to the infinite intelligence of the inner kingdom. Peace becomes more consistent, not because circumstances are always ideal, but because you're anchored in something deeper than circumstances. Your relationships deepen as you consistently recognize the divine in others. Creativity flows more freely because you're connected to its infinite source. Health improves gradually as consciousness of wholeness permeates your experience. Prosperity increases naturally as you live from the abundance of the kingdom rather than the limitations of material thinking. If you've experienced moments where returning to spiritual awareness feels easier than it once did, write in the comments, "My spiritual muscles are growing." Let's look now at how these principles can be integrated into the fabric of your daily life. As we draw our exploration to a close, I want to acknowledge something important. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey into kingdom consciousness, you're clearly someone who recognizes the profound potential of spiritual truth to transform everyday life. This isn't just philosophical theory for you. You're seeking practical wisdom that can be applied to real challenges and opportunities. I've shared these teachings from Joel Goldsmith because they've deeply impacted my own understanding of the divine presence within. The recognition that the kingdom of heaven exists within your own consciousness right now isn't just another spiritual concept. It's a revelation that can transform every aspect of your experience when applied consistently. If you found value in these insights and want to continue exploring practical, mystical wisdom that bridges the spiritual and material worlds, consider subscribing to this channel. Each week, we dive into transformative teachings that go beyond theory into lived experience, always with the goal of making spiritual truth accessible and applicable to everyday life. If this message about the kingdom of heaven within resonated with your own inner knowing, I'd love to hear from you. Simply comment, "The kingdom is within me," so I know these teachings connected with something already alive in your consciousness. A gentle tap on the like button helps these teachings reach others who might be searching for exactly this understanding right now. People who, like you, sense there's something more profound beneath the surface of material existence. Right here, you'll find another video that explores how to maintain spiritual awareness during times of crisis and challenge. It's a perfect companion to what we've discussed today. Click and join me there as we continue this journey of awakening together. Remember, the kingdom of heaven isn't somewhere else or sometime later. It's within you right now, waiting only for your recognition.